Why is it a poignant feeling, Richard?
Well, 37 years is a long time.
How about you?
Wallace, Roberts, and Todd.
Founding fathers.
In 1980, Ian left the firm. So the firm became Wallace, Roberts, and Todd. It has been ever since.
Where was the first office, Richard?
On Cherry Street in Philadelphia, a little tiny office, and moved to 17th and Chestnut Street, where it was for quite a few years, then to Broad Street, and finally to here. For those of you who don't know, this Friday is my last day. So those of you who don't know what I'm going to do after that will be reinforced to know that I don't know either. So, but this presentation brings about 30 different jobs that took place over the last 37 years. There's some very entertaining and some educational things that you can learn from looking at what we've done as a firm over these many years.
You know, this is an incredibly valuable, rich heritage and history to the firm, and it's buried. You know, we really don't do much to mine that, to get it out, to tell that story, and to share it with everyone. The mission of the firm, the values of the firm, and we need to start with Richard.
I was offered a job by David Wallace, Ian McCard, Thomas, Todd, and William Roberts. These were very unique people. My first job was project director for a new community in New Orleans, Louisiana called Pontchartrain. It was unique in that it was the first time that all four partners of this firm took part in the work program. And of course, as we know, much time later, much of that property was totally flooded, and of course John Beckman knows clearly how that occurred. The second example of a new community plan was in Miami, Florida. This plan was to create a new town in town, which eventually was something that WRT followed and designed an award-winning project. Another new community, Ignacio knows of this one, we would develop design guidelines for a community that they were planning on developing as a resort in Mallorca. And in Kansas City was award winner by APA for an amazing long-range look at a city. But our role in this was the Northland area with the airport here and downtown Kansas City here. The second example, worked with Nancy on this one, continues today in Upper Darby, and they have been a very good client. We also worked with developers over the years. This one was in many ways the profile project for the city, where we did the master plan for Liberty Place. I think those of you, Richard, Bartholomew, who are in the meetings with Willard, would be very excited by the kind of creativity of actually building above Ed Bacon's height limit. The first building taller than City Hall. What we saw here is our newest example of the corporate work, and it's the idea of converting the Fashion Center Mall into a mixed-use development. Seth Shapiro was working on this. And the other place where, of course, we continue to work is in New Orleans, where the process of developing long-range givens and the probability growth model developed by David Wallace was followed in the first growth management plan, which is shown here, and then followed with John Beckman in the second growth management plan. For those of you who don't know, this fuzzy slide is Detroit. We actually worked on the downtown plan for Detroit, Renaissance Center, or as David Wallace called it, Renaissance Off Center. The other downtown plan that, this one was Tom Todd, WMRT was involved, and years later Scott Page and I came in and did a master plan for downtown, which I thought was really not very good. One, the design award for that year, but this was one, Camden downtown, called the Camden Gateway Study. The Valentine Museum was part of the actual Civil War invasion of Richmond. The actual design of the canal was a fascinating and award-winning concept. Kent did a magnificent job. It was hard to do a master plan for Johns Hopkins because the original campus was so carefully geometric for Georgia Tech. Antonio and I worked courageously. Other master plans for campuses, Clemson University. Alan Pruitt began his campus planning history by working on this project with me, which was a very good project. We continued on with Lafayette College, Franklin and Marshall, and our firm at one time was probably the most well-known campus planning firm in the country. In the housing design area, I have been involved for many years, all the way back to the Planning Commission. It began, for those of you who go back and forth to the airport and probably don't know this, with the renovation of Wilson Park. This is in South Philadelphia, right along the expressway. We were charged with redeveloping two of the towers, and we did a tremendous amount of effort, in this case with Joe Jordan, and in many ways a lot of what was done was really pioneering. That was my first experience dealing with HUD. I think I should have learned a lesson then, but I didn't. The pioneering project was Richard Allen Holmes. Richard Allen Holmes and Gil really has done a wonderful job. WRT and our Mr. Housing over here has done how many units in Atlantic City?
Yeah, over 100.
Mill Creek was one of the last Hope 6 projects that got funded. This one's in Philadelphia. And then finally, capital master plans. Now, as you know, WRT designed the master plan for the U.S. Capitol, which was an award-winning project. We went on, in this case, to do the capital of Virginia, to renovate the Capitol building itself, designed by Thomas Jefferson. This is Illinois, and we're working on finishing this. So what are we going to be like? What's the future going to be in this profession, and what's going to happen to WRT? I think that we've learned a lot in these years, and we've learned that we are going to have to continue to listen to the public as part of this planning process. And I think that there are two things that we've got to remember. The first is that the mission of sustainability that we've started to move in is going to be at the very center of all of this planning. We have projects in India, Cambodia. I think that myself, I've worked in Taipei, in Barcelona, in London, in Paris, and that's fun. And those of you who are going to remain should be very proud and optimistic about your own future. Thank you.
Attention, attention. This is just, it's been great. I want to thank Richard, first of all, for the presentation. And as I mentioned something to you earlier about the comments at the principal meeting in December that led to us doing this with Richard, I have to share with you that the comments that really stood out of my mind from that session were really the words like warm, generous, and welcoming. And that's really, for me, I think what Richard stands out for me. And it really goes back to what WRT is all about, and it's all about the people. And for that, I want to thank Richard for all that he's given to the firm.
One thing which I hope all of you picked up on his presentation is the number of people that he's worked with. In every project, he mentioned me, mentioned you, mentioned Gil, mentioned this and other staff. And I think he personifies the idea of a collaborative environment. Richard, I think I hold you in very high esteem for that dedication. Thank you.